Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Thursday, August 17th, and this is virtual lunch number 860. Our guest today is Jay Abrenica, the Director of Business Development and Marketing at Sidley Austin, and this is part of our series on fueling firm growth with UniCourt. Hey, Jay, how are you?
Doing great, Ari. Thanks for having me.
It's my honor. We're privileged to have you, and I'm super excited for this conversation. Usually, what we do is I try to give the folks who are on, at least in the beginning, a chance just to introduce themselves, tell you who they are, so that we can have more of a discussion. You know who your audience is, and I would love to start with Jeff.
Hey, Jay, great to see you. Jeff Cox, I'm the Director of Content at UniCourt. Really excited to have you join us today.
Nancy.
Hi, Jay. I'm Nancy Merland, President of Merland Marketing and Social Media, and I'm a marketing and business development advisor, and I specialize in content, social, and digital media. Started out as the senior marketer at what used to be Baker & Daniels, now Faegre. It has turned into Faegre long after I left, but it's nice to see you.
Joe Scott.
Hi, Jay. Joe Scott. Very nice to meet you. I'm an attorney by training, but the last several years I've been doing consulting for law firms and legal technology companies.
And Joel Weber.
Hi, Jay. I'm Joel Weber. I'm a corporate and commercial lawyer in Chicago area. Nice to meet you.
So, Jay, tell us about your background and the work that you do at Sidley Austin.
Yeah. So after college, my first job was as a paralegal, a little more than 2 months that Joel had put forth. So Sullivan & Cromwell took me in as a litigation legal assistant. So baptism by fire there. I mean, got lots of partner interaction right away. Spent a couple of years there. They helped me with my law school recommendations, of course. You cultivate those relationships with the partners. You're in court with them. You're in the case rooms and all that. And I was thrown into, a big thing where I was all in my early 20s, but I had to manage like 35 temps on a huge case. So that was really demanding. I mean, I was just kind of learning on the fly and learn to, do the people management beyond the project management. So I did that for a few years, and then I, applied to law school, got into Brooklyn and Fordham. And then I was kind of at an inflection point in my life, being first generation American and having gone to Manila a lot as a kid. My mother worked in the UN for 35 years. So we had a nice little home leave perk there. So we could fly free as a family till I was 21, and my brother too. So we spent a lot of summers and Christmases there. So it had an effect on me. So I was kind of like feeling like this foreigner in two countries. It wasn't in the Philippines, and it was first generation American, loving both, and figured, I'm going to do this for the next 40 years of my life. Let me see if I can do a Manila thing. So luckily, this school that I attended in the Philippines was affiliated with Fordham as a Jesuit school, and the credits would transfer over to some degree. Very intense law school experience there. They have class 6 days a week. You carry like 20 credits. It was intense. And I did it for a year. I liked it, but I was kind of jealous of my classmates. They were really into it. They would really want to talk about, all the material and the cases and everything. And I was just jealous. I was like, can we just go with the judge on this one? And they were like, what's wrong with you? I wanted to love it as much as they do. Maybe that's just kind of the creative side of me, and how creative can you really be with the law, right? So I was going to come back to New York already. Some family there was like, no, stay. And then they helped me get a job in advertising as like a junior copywriter at McCann Erickson. So I did that for a bit, and I met my wife there. So, it all worked out both, more on the personal side, if not the law school professional side. And then I came back here, and Sullivan & Cromwell, I kept in close touch with a lot of the folks there, and they started this new, wasn't called marketing back then, practice information department. So embryonic stages, I used to have a junior partner go with a senior partner with lots of paper to a pitch or whatever. And I was there at the early stages. So I kind of started from the bottom. I was a data entry guy for all the M&A and securities, like transactional information. So my focus shifted from being a litigation para to more on the kind of corporate transactional financial services side, and had just great people around me. I had a great mentor. He was a data head and kind of a visionary, and I'd already known the systems from being a litigation assistant to a degree. So it just kind of took off from there. So I've been in the space now, I guess, 25 years. Most of it at S&C, and I got to do stints in Los Angeles and London, so I saw the world through them. It's great. And then I switched to Dentons, which is an incredibly large firm, and it was very, very exciting to work there for 3+ years. kind of missed the homegrown organic style of S&C. So I moved over to Hunton and Williams, who then, of course, I jinxed it, went on to merge with Andrews Kurth. So it's back to the whole merger integration setup and all those growing pains and fun, right? And then, wasn't shopping myself around town, but then Sidley people approached me and I couldn't pass it up. I mean, it's a top 10 AM law firm. The level of investment in marketing and BDs is great here. I mean, so I jumped all over it, and I'm now the director of the transactional and regulatory portfolios. So that's your usual capital markets, M&A, private equity, and then privacy, environmental, government strategies, kind of on the reg side. About like 20 to 25 people report into me, maybe like 10 layers, different layers, like 10 managers, and then they have their juniors. And then I have counterparts that cover up the litigation side, industries, portfolio, got a client team, group, and then we got a lot of market intel and operations folks. So it's a big department. It's really massive. I've never been in a department this large, even with Denton's. This has been great. So you've got a lot of people with lots of roles covered off rather than smushed. So it's been great. I've only been here since January 2022, but it's been great. And my fellow directors are, I think, all CMO level people. So I'm learning a lot, not just imparting. And always happy to be, with peers and meeting up with folks like you guys all on this call today, because I get a lot of value at the regular meetups with CMOs and directors. After work, I try to, a lot of my buddies from S&C went on to be CMOs and directors at either big law or boutique firms. So, we keep in touch without giving away internal strategies. We get together a lot. It's fun. And, I keep the industry buoyant. We help each other out. And excited. I mean, it's never stale or stagnant in law firms. So you always need lawyers. It's never even pandemic and financial crisis. I've been through a lot of the, economic downturns and headwinds. When I started, it was like the IPO bubble burst. And, you have a diversified firm like Sidley or Sullivan or Denton's or Hunton, you're fine. Luckily there haven't been any staff or lawyer reductions, the 4 firms I've been at now. And hopefully this is it. I'm a long haul guy. I don't want to do a whole bunch of small steps. I'm all about, institutional knowledge, growing, evolving with the firm. So I'm happy. I'm thrilled to be here. It's been great. I want to get out to Chicago more though, and maybe grab a coffee with Joel, because we've had a little bit of a hold on that with economic headwinds in terms of essential travel versus this type of meetup.
What's interesting to me is that you've been in law your entire career, right? You mentioned starting out at Sullivan & Cromwell. Here you are today. From a marketing and business development standpoint, how have you seen the way that large firms, in particular, that's your experience, approach marketing and business development? Like, how have you seen that change over the last couple of decades?
I mean, for sure, the advent of technologies dictated that. I mean, they saw it when it was very much everything was pen and paper, and then now everything is configuring technology to, facilitate, pitch and data requests. So the lawyers can spend time on billable matters, and we can effectively put forward, presentation materials for them, whatever we need to package it as. It used to be very, much also an anecdotal scramble with emails. And now we've got, systems and so much technology. We even have here at Sidley, we have KM lawyers, embedded. These aren't just lawyers in between lawyering, they're KM knowledge management lawyers as a career, which has been great. So, I work closely with the funds group here, and our KM lawyers, like a Schulte Funds former lawyer. So, just that added benefit of having these subject matter experts working alongside marketing and BD, like all that's new. I mean, it wasn't like this before. It was very, I would say, more reactive at the beginning stages of this, and the partners were just kind of giving us our marching orders, and we would just kind of try to follow that. And it was more compliant. And now it's become much more vibrant and creative, innovative, more infographics. Like, just again, technology is just driving it, and there's always, looking at our competitors and being happy about that. So if Skadden had something, and we would see it at Sullivan, and instead of moaning about it, be like, okay, we can not just do the same like for like, but let's try to improve upon that deliverable. So yeah, I would just say everything comes down to the technology motivating all the change.
One of the things that I found so interesting about your background, aside from the fact that it's so long, I didn't realize how long you have been doing this, is that you started working with data. You mentioned what it was called, but I saw that you were a practice data coordinator in 1998. What type of practice data? What was the data that was happening that you were working with in 1998?
Yeah, I mean, thanks goes to my mentor and the director of practice information team at that time. He basically molded me into being this practice data person, a mini version of him. So we would take on these new projects because, isolating like information by geography or industry, matter type, things like that, you just couldn't do that at the time. You couldn't call the accounting department and be like, hey, give us a roster of our Latin America clients. No one had tagged these things. It was just all, again, anecdotal scrambling. So this was, we built like querying tools almost by hand, at the beginning, until more and more technology started coming along, and we relied on that, and we started kind of like doing overlays with their, API and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's what it went from, receiving handwritten paper from lawyers on, closings of M&A and capital markets, IPO deals, entering that manually into a system. So obviously there's room for human error there, and moving it to a more obviously quicker, more efficient set of systems. So we could, easily pull up materials as needed, and these querying tools were proved invaluable because clients are obviously very demanding. It's competitive. You got to get your deal sheets together quickly, and you don't want to start from scratch. You want to start building these library files. So we were really good about that. He was good at cracking the whip, making sure those library files were always kept up to date in real time. And I learned from what I thought was the best. So, that made me marketable too. I think down the line, I was able to transfer a lot of that, experience and success at Denton's, Hunton, and now even to a degree here at Sidley, although they're more advanced than I was doing that in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, I would imagine that you get a lot of street cred if you have a data title on your resume from, 25 years ago.
Yeah, I know it doesn't get referred to much, but thank you. I think it's more just the director leadership, guiding and shaping at the top levels with, practice leaders, industry leaders at the firms, getting systematic plans in place, business plans, like, really like not the check the box type of bureaucratic exercises, but actual like actionable plans. and then, using those plans across the department, or across those portfolios I mentioned to do more cross-selling, cross-serving of clients. That's the biggest thing, being able to double down on these clients, form these client teams for institutionalized key clients like Sullivan did with Goldman Sachs, just as Bernadette mentioned. So, it's so important. And then configuring technology, building, extranets and things like that for those clients. I've had experience doing that as well. So yeah, quantum leap from when I started. I mean, it's just, I didn't even have email when I started. So you can just imagine, working in systems that were, you had to send things around with your buck slip on top of it, do the messenger service. The mail would come every 30 minutes and you kind of wait for it that way, or live in case rooms, I kind of missed some of that because there was a lot of people interaction because you didn't have email. So it was mostly phone and really running into offices back and forth just to take assignments down. But
yeah, I mean, it's been really cool to hear some of your background, Jay, and kind of how you got into the BD space and big law. But what do you see as the future of the business development and marketing function, and kind of what role do you see data playing even more than it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, I see more teams embedded with the lawyers, less generalists. I don't get calls like, hey, Jay, who do you got down there? I've got a pitch or, something I need help on right now, a spreadsheet or whatever. You have people really like, there's a real two-way functional relationship that gets formed right at the beginning of people's careers now. And I think that's good for the younger set. You want to feel they have that partner level interaction early on. I mean, you're talking about people who crushed in high school and college, and then they show up
right.
and kind of like subordinate, which is not my style. I like to empower people, like no minions. Everybody's a counselor to one another. It just goes so much further that you get people. You're not throwing them into a bad situation where they'll fail, but there's enough where they don't have to wait 3 years before they can actually, meet up with a partner. Like the old days, it was just, the partners only call me, when I got more senior, and everybody else was kind of invisible. And I'm seeing less and less of that now, thankfully. And I think you get, people more loyal and ready to long haul it, because it's a very competitive war for talent out there, and you don't want to lose good people as you train them up. So at Sullivan, we had a lot of lifers, so I was kind of just used to that. But I've seen so much attrition and movement, especially in the junior ranks. You're lucky to get 2 years out of like a coordinator. That's like the unicorn at times in terms of people management. So the people investments have grown considerably. I see that really kind of guiding and shaping the future is getting people more professionalized, understanding the subject matter. You don't have to major in M&A, PE, or environmental or privacy, but you can learn it. And I think that's what the staying power of that is. Start to learn it, see it appear in the various channels. We've got so much more social now than before. So everything hits like .com, social feeds. We'll see how AI plays out. We had some fun with Chat GPT at a quarterly partner meeting, and just we had some fun with that in terms of just getting poems about our chairman onto that. It was really hilarious. But yeah, it's just keeping up with a very competitive market, especially New York. This is a very crowded market, and globally thinking about your clients. You're seeing so much expansion, so much consolidation in the space. You got to have those boots on the ground, be in and of the communities. Yeah, I just think there's an appetite for BD and marketing that will never go away. And during times like this, when there's economic headwinds, all the more we're getting just slammed with the requests, because you got to keep the partners busy. They're getting pressure to be kept busy, and and when they're very busy, this gets a little subordinated. So this is the time for us to shine. So we've been really kind of stepping it up and doing a lot of Zoom calls and meetings and lawyer education on BD, advanced BD. So I love about Sidley. There's just a lot of investment in that space. The lawyers feel like, we're really like trusted advisors to them once you build that credibility.
Hi, Jay. Jamie Field. I'm also known as the Rainmaker because I teach lawyers how to become rainmakers, particularly in mid-market and large law. So
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Where is AI coming in on all of this? I'm just going to put it out there like that.
No, that's fine. Look, we formed an AI working group. I don't know. It's not to say we weren't doing the work already. You've seen like bellwether cases like the Getty images. We're not working on that, but I think another top 10 firm is. But I think the message here is, our competitive advantage isn't going away. And partners just getting into these forums, letting each other know what issues clients will be facing on this front. So
I'm actually speaking about AI in terms of how are you using
BD?
it for marketing and BD. Yeah. How are you using it at this point?
I haven't really even demoed or kicked the tires on that as much just yet, but I imagine that's definitely on the horizon. Again, we have a big group here, so we have marketing operations, market intel people that that demo all those products that are out there, and meet regularly with colleagues in the space at other firms, other top firms, to just see what the market is doing. So that will then come to me in my group, they'll present, and then we'll kind of take it from there. Whereas I used to be more on that side in the past life, as Ari mentioned, kind of the data side, but more just BD and marketing now, client development. But yeah, there's an appetite. You're hearing about it constantly in the news and in all the feeds. So I'm excited to see how it's going to play in terms of, facilitating what I need to get done with my team going forward. But no real case study just yet that I could share.
I hear this a lot. That's a great question, Jamie. I hear this a lot, Jay, to be honest. I do a lot of research on the client side, of what are in-house counsel or other in-house leaders who are hiring law firms doing. And I'm fascinated sometimes by, someone else is doing it right now. Like someone else is figuring out what the risk factors are and what the use cases are. It'd be interesting to see, there's a lot of news about how quickly it's happening, but I think on the ground, it doesn't. I'm going to be at the ILTA conference next week. I'll keep you posted.
That's great. Yeah. We're sending a couple folks to that too. So that's
I'm sure you're sending.
Yeah. That's always part of our marketing budgets. Yeah.
Right. So your marketing people will go, not just like IT people or.
This environment now, it has to be, a must have, like some of the big conferences, like the big structured finance event in Vegas yearly. That's where all the heavy hitters are. We have to send marketing people there to run the booth and help with the client interaction. But ILTA, yes, I've in a past life, I've definitely sent marketers to that. This year, I think it might just be maybe a junior lawyer and a partner going. So,
Well, so
but
you
hopefully
mentioned
2024, there'll be a shift back to, because I
Yeah.
think it's so helpful to have the marketers there, taking notes and just coming back to their desks with, ideas.
Well,
I mean,
the predictions are that there'll be lots of discussion about AI, but I
yes.
wonder, because I've listened to discussions about AI and it's always like, oh, it's got a lot of promise, but like there are not a lot of teeth in the discussions because
Well, I think it's split into two camps in
Mhm.
firms. There's AI, generative AI, and the
Mhm.
marketing and BD folks are definitely using it and they're testing it, and we're talking a lot about it. Then there's just AI and general AI that's being talked about, so that and task forces are being, from everything I've seen from my peers and clients, task forces and firms that have been put together just to study AI generally, which, just as Jay said, how are our clients going to be, impacted by this? What are the tools we need to be aware of? So I think it's split into two different camps, but generative AI has definitely found its way into the marketing and BD ranks in a lot of firms, just to make their jobs more efficient.
Sorry, there just has to be this is where I get in my thing. There just has to be an acknowledgement that there are ethical issues that lawyers must be aware of, as well as the BD folks, because a lot of BD folks don't realize that. Oh yeah, generative AI, just do it. No, it's, there's a lot of stuff. So anyway, sorry.
All right. Yes, that's all right.
Jay, you mentioned working, you worked here, New York, you said LA, you were abroad, you went to law school for a year abroad, you worked at several different firms. And so I just wonder what role culture plays, firm culture of the location in terms of the firm's marketing and business development style.
Yeah, I mean, you need obviously the buy-in, you need champions. I was very fortunate at Sullivan that's how it started. I mean, we had the people at the top, we had a business development committee. So the investment was really heavy there without issue. The challenges are always, partners managing partners. It's really tough. These organizations tend to be kind of flat. So in terms of marketing and BD, you're going to get people at different levels of the game. Some people, but that's where you got to find your skill, your superpower as a lawyer, and really hone in on that. Whether you like, what's your interest, your skill? Do you like speaking? Do you like media? Do you like just the client one-on-one stuff? So really getting and building those relationships, I think to Jeff's question, just embedding people with the lawyers so they're really part of a team and not just staff, I think has grown considerably since I've joined the space. So yeah, I think that drive, we have a very marketing centric leader now, Yvette Ostelaza. She's like the first Latina ever chair at a firm of this stature. She's all about the marketing. Yeah, So it's always about marketing the heck out of the people here and our practices. So no shortage of excitement around that, and we're advocating for partners, but we have to make sure it has clear marketing value. There's a lot of stuff out there that's just the ROI is not so tangible. So we've cut back conferences, sponsorships, really scalpeling those a bit more, especially during these economic headwind times.
This is so interesting. You mentioned this idea of helping lawyers find their marketing and business development superpower. How do you do that?
Well, we have an advanced business development course here. It's probably something Jamie is very familiar doing as a consultant. So we work with the leaders. We rotate partners to attend these sessions. In good years, good economic years, we do it, definitely offsite. We're doing a lot of it virtually now. And then I help facilitate those with other directors, and we do breakout rooms and talk about cross-marketing, cross-selling, just really sharing best practices. And that's the best way to learn. Also, learn how your colleagues market is important. So we've had really great success with that. And I think that program's gone for a good stretch of time now. Predates my arrival last year. So we just had another one in July. So yeah, that new partner orientation, any type of training. I do a lot more associate BD, kind of demystifying BD for them, as a non-partner. How do you do BD? Because you got to start early. You can't just, wait till you become partner to start doing business development. So we're starting right out of the gate with a lot of the folks. And look, when you're a first year, second year, your client is probably the partners and the senior associates. And then you start to build those relationships with the clients themselves. So, there's rites of passage there, and hope that's a helpful answer.
Yeah, no, it just
Jay?
you characterize it in a really interesting way. Yes, question.
Yeah, Jay, do you think, it's what I've seen, that it's a lot harder for young associates of color to start those business development relationships very early because for whatever reason, they haven't been given access to the type of people who are mentors who tell them about how important it is to start doing business development in your first year of practice?
I'm seeing an uptick in the opposite, Bernadette, where obviously clients are requiring DEI and not just check the box DEI. They want to make sure that the matters are staffed with diverse lawyers. We're making sure you can't bring 4 white guys to a meeting anymore.
No, they'll be kicked out. Right.
They'll be kicked out, right? I mean, we invite young associates to more pitch calls and kickoff calls than I've ever seen before. It used to just be like the senior partners, the relationship partners, leading those. So I'm seeing lots more opportunity. They're getting airtime on a lot of, podcasting we do internally, these little vignettes we do like on our portals. So really want to.
Is that client facing or just internal?
More internal for now, but
that's good because the senior partners need to see what the work is that the young associates are doing. So that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, the retention is the tricky thing, kind of the
of course,
the unconscious biases and things like that. But Sidley's also very good at having all the wellness month. We have wellness directors and diversity. We have a great new diversity chief who came from Devil Boys, Leslie.
Oh yeah, Richard's yelling.
Yes.
Yeah, I know her.
You know her? Yeah.
Of course I do.
Yeah, she's great. And she just joined us like a couple months ago. Yeah.
She's had 3 or 4 jobs in the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
She was very active.
All right, Bernadette, what do you?
Bernadette's got her
LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, Leslie's great. And we've had her, the other thing is on marketing calls, I've been bringing in more guests. It's not just the same senior staffers like giving a presentation. I've been getting guest stars from the partner ranks into or the CFO or it's been good. Or consultants too, we do use some, and they give us kind of the state of the market. But yeah, just getting more and more embedded as a team with the lawyers we support, I think is the trend now, which thankfully is.
One question I think that'll follow right on that, Jay, is UniCourt's done some research on kind of structures for marketing and business development teams, and it seems to be there's a really huge variance from firm to firm. What do you think are some of those core roles though that you really need to have in a marketing and business development function? You talked about a bunch of them, but what do you see as the core ones? Yeah, within but then maybe even outside, cross-functional teams that you would really need to be a powerhouse as a marketing team.
Yeah, I'm lucky to speak to that at Sidley because it's heavy level of investment in a wide department with marketing communications and marketing operations, clients, industries centered folks, obviously practices and regions. You've got CSRs kind of within us a little bit more adjunct, and also sustainability alumni is with us, and then we have the CAM folks. So this is pretty full service in terms of what I've seen. I've never before Sidley, a lot of these functions and jobs were smushed onto people. You could be the practice marketer, but also cover an industry and then have 3 key clients. So you can imagine, whiteboards bursting at the seams for a lot of people, and just kind of without demand management. I don't know if people want to speak about that here. The culture here is there is no demand management, right? And that's really the biggest challenge for me, is trying to level load, get people to be effective during business hours, dial back on Zoom calls if you can, or these check-in calls unless they're very essential, needs to know stuff. So yeah, having the department's one thing, but also, making sure it's lean and efficient in the way it operates is very important. And I think we achieved that here and try to standardize it across the regions. But yeah, different cultures in different regions. Our APAC and Europe teams are a little bit more fragmented, spread out, versus the US team kind of takes the lead here because of time zone differences too, in terms of those catch-up calls. But when I was at Dentons, it was kind of the opposite. It was a very global firm. I was on calls with Singapore and Australia at all odd hours. So, really trying there to be more of a US helper to those regions during my 3+ years there, handling transactional marketing. So yeah, but hey, I have a blueprint. I don't know if there's a blueprint for a firm. It also depends on the ratio, the size, the needs, the laterals you're bringing in. I mean, a lot of things will dictate the headcount flow.
Well, I have a question about the international. You mentioned having offices everywhere, but I wanted to ask a follow-up question to something you mentioned before. You mentioned that more junior folks are getting opportunities. They're sitting in on calls. They're being on podcasts, which all have a kind of seem to have a remote element. And I'm just wondering if the fact that we've become so comfortable and firms really moved, holistically remote, 3 years ago and are now kind of integrating that as best they can, is sort of this remote appreciation creating more BD exposure, BD opportunities for folks that they didn't have before?
I think it's a mix. I think people do miss the organic kind of, not shoot the breeze, all being together in an office setting. But yeah, it lends itself to, standing Zoom call collaboration that are agenda driven. Of course, we don't just go around and shoot the breeze. It's needs to know basis stuff. I make sure my portfolio meetings are agenda driven and not people just regurgitating their job descriptions. So learning from each other, like what's working, what's a new pitch idea or a successful proposal response, and kind of highlighting that. And also working with our pricing team and our talent development people, our staff, our other like associate development folks on the learning and development side. So yeah, I mean, I think internationally there's still some room for growth here for sure. We don't have as much interaction as I would like at times with Europe and APAC, but we are building that out. We've had a really couple new hires director wise out there. So they've come from really top firms in the space, and they're local folks from Asia and Europe that are helping us, kind of best of breed what we can here. And my boss is actually in Brussels, so I have an international dynamic already, because that's just the setup. She's the most senior person in the team, so she's great, has that partner level presence that it's really special. So it's good.
To dig into that for a second, so I'm in the midst of I produce an annual report where I interview general counsel around the world, and to Jamie's point about the ethics of technology and other practices, one of the questions that I ask these folks is, have you considered the ethics of certain technologies that you're using or certain practices? And it's fascinating to me because there's like a clear line between a lot of the US folks who are like, not really, and then in Europe, for example, they give me a list, well, we adhere to anti-slavery laws, and they go through this whole list of things that they've considered in all of these different activities. And so it just got me thinking about when you're dealing with a global organization. It's great for me because I'm doing a lot more international GC interviews this year than I have in the past, because the reports become kind of more global. So Sidley, I think I read it has 21 offices in 9 countries. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we just added Miami. We had our 1-year anniversary.
Is that because of Messi? That's pretty much, everybody. Yeah. Messi is. I told my son the other day, I was like, I feel like Messi is playing against little league teams or something. Somehow he is so dominant and changed the face of soccer in the United States. It's pretty great. Anyway, the point is, when does marketing? So if you have 21 offices in 9 countries, when does marketing need to be firm-wide? Have this unified presence? When can it be unique to a particular office or even a particular practice in an office?
Yeah, I mean, you like to think of it as one firm approach. So often what I'm dealing with my team is, cross-border opportunities through proposals and RFPs, and also talent acquisition. We brought in a few people from White & Case, so we built up a Middle East practice where we didn't have a presence, and we were able to get clients out to the World Cup in Doha last year. So just becoming more known, and not just an American firm that happened, we're not colonizing those offices. So really being in and of those communities and seeing it. And this is a struggle for me when I worked in London with Sullivan, is there was a lot of pirating of German and French lawyers. And it's competitive. It's like you're a New York firm. Like, why would I use you instead of Freshfields or Clifford Chance? Like, so you have to really come up with these differentiating points. So we're doing that constantly. I think we've got some really great materials that speak to our cross-border prowess. I'm actually working on more of that now, and the lateral recruitment is dictating a lot of that. You have to be seen as always thinking of your clients globally. But I would just say, to your question, I mean, most of it is just client need, is to be able to be a one-stop shop and not just a client of a department in one locale, but to be able to be, that clearinghouse or that point of contact for as many key clients as possible. And I've done some sessions with partners around that from different geographies, and they agree. I mean, even if they're not the person that knows blockchain or something, they know they're 1 degree separated from connecting them to the colleague, either down the hall or another office or region. So I think that's a good thing about the Sidley way, is just becoming those clearinghouse type people for your clients is so key to just driving revenue and retaining and expanding client relationships.
Speaking of going down the hall or anything like that, do you guys have any in office requirements now, or are you fully remote, or you must be in for X number of days, or is it just we trust you?
For marketing, it's 3 times a week.
Okay, I was going to say, and what about the marketing people? Are they being treated the same? So marketing BD people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not treated like daycare, Jamie. I don't run it like that. I care about the deliverables, but I also care about, the optics, the impression. So we do definitely have a rotation. So it's not everybody just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have Monday and Friday people too, just so, if a partner or client walks down the hall, like where there's a composition of people there, it's not dark. So that optic means a lot. We're not quite where the Scaddens are and others that are hitting the trades where they're demanding 4 days. But I know from friends that are CMOs at firms like that, where they've been 4 days a week for a long stretch now. They looked at the Monday productivity numbers. They weren't great. And they put all their training and their key stuff, like Monday is the day you got to be in. Like, you can't play around with it. It's not Wednesday, it's Monday. So they have a Monday to Thursday culture there. And look, the young associates, you hear a lot of different things in the trades, but I think if the partners are here, and that's how I feel, if my partners are here, I'm here. I just have to mirror that. I'm there. They're my client. So, I have to be with them if they're coming in. The problem at the beginning as we're returning to office was kind of scattershot in terms of how many partners were coming in, both at this firm and my previous firm, because I kind of came in right as that was all kind of coming back, and then there was Omicron and all these other big variables and variants that were happening and dictating in-office attendance. But I see it returning to 4 days in a lot of places. Our London office, I think, will be the first to do it. Our European leader is based in London, is pretty adamant about being
mandatory, you mean?
I think they're going to mandate it. I don't know if it'd be right after Labor Day weekend, but I see that on the horizon. And becoming a partner, but not without being in the office enough, I don't know. If you talk to the senior partners, that's a tough thing. It's a tough sell for them. They didn't grow up that way. So, but you have to be agile. You have to have flexibility and signal that. I think that's important. And I try to do that with my team. And if people need to work from home, they ask me and I say, fine. I'm not trying to, strong arm people or make
so Jay, before we close, I was hoping you would share sort of like, what are the skills that you've seen over the course of your career that those who are strongest in marketing and business development possess? And I wonder if they're now using that with data as like an additional component of their, strength.
For sure. I mean, there's so many different types of examples to that question, Ari. Couldn't even give you an exhaustive list of that, but being resilient, speed and efficiency is always huge. I know these are like really 30,000 foot concepts, but yeah, being more flexible and adaptable. I mean, I'm learning that as I come in. I'm kind of an outsider still. I mean, I have people here 15, 20 years. So, even if I don't have all the shape shifting abilities, I'm still able to kind of tackle, new things and responsibilities in a way that helps us thrive in this fast changing environment. I think there's more sensitivity around treatment. I mean, I'm very keen on that side. It's kind of the way I manage folks. I want us to treat each other as peers. And if not, I work on that with people, not, in a punitive way, in an encouraging way, to say, hey, your brand just took a hit. You're great with me. You got to be great with everybody. Just try that out for a month and see where we land. And usually it gets you to a better place. So you can't read minds, but emotional intelligence is such a useful skill in the workplace, and your team will only benefit from that. So, I try to look for these like superhero like elements of my fellow directors, my senior managers, but all my colleagues. Everybody's got like something to contribute. They don't just judge success by compliance anymore. It's more like what's personally and professionally satisfying, what makes me more excited than anxious as I start my work week, that type of stuff. And just having those open conversations where we couldn't in the past. I don't think, it wasn't a thing in law firms, but I'm starting to see a shift. So I think that will dictate more collaboration, people kicking it into a fifth gear. And I'm excited for it because I've always kind of been like, if you're just a straight A people pleasing type person, you're going to crush it in law firm marketing. But it's more than that now.
Jay Abrenica, everybody. Awesome, Jay. Thank you so very much for just being part of our conversation today. It's really been a privilege. And thanks, of course, to UniCourt for supporting this series on fueling firm growth. I hope that everyone has a great day. And I really appreciate this opportunity. So thank you.